Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now today I've got some interesting finds for you. Now some of you may have seen this already because I've posted this on a few groups on Facebook. But if you haven't, I've got this thing here. Now it's not very big, well it's not tiny, but it's a bit of a distance away from the rover, so it's not very clear. Now there's not a lot I can do about that, but what I can show you are different angles of the same thing, because I've got left and right gigapans here of this area. And I've got raw and enhanced gigapans as well, so you can check the differences between the raw and enhanced images and the left and the right. And what we have here is what looks to be some kind of carved animal resembling a cat or something similar. Now, I can't prove it's a cat. It does look like a carved animal. And it's just here, right in the center of the image. I'll show you with the magnifier here. Just here. There it is. And it looks like it's sitting on this kind of rock here, which is attached to like a plinth or part of a wall or something, which seems to be joined to this thing here, or this weird roundish rock on the end, which has got some weird details in it. There's this thing here. Now this looks like it might be a skull, but it's a bit irregular, so I'm not sure, but it does seem to have a row of teeth on it. This was spotted by Rami Bartilan just a couple of days ago, actually. And it could be, because I've found similar ones in Gale Crater where the eye sockets aren't exactly symmetrical. And of course, these things are eroded, so often you get parts of the skulls and remains that are broken off or eroded away, because the wind will howl around these objects quite regularly and erode them in sort of strange ways, okay? But this is the thing we're looking at today. Mainly, I've got a few other finds. I'm not going to show you everything I've got here because it would take me all day, because I've got a lot of stuff up here. I'm just going to show you the main things that I found, the clearer things that I found. And what I'll do, if I find any extra things, I'll put them in at the end of the video in the last 2 minutes, as I always do. I'll put all the clips in at the end and you can take screenshots, whatever. But there it is. You can see here, there's two ears sticking up there. The little face there. This is the front of the cat, or the belly. Front feet, back leg here. And this is the back coming down. And this is a rock that it's attached to. Now, I'm not saying this is a living creature or fossilized. I think this is probably the carved effigy of some kind of animal resembling a cat in size with pointed ears, right? But it may not be a cat, it could be some other kind of creature. It could be almost anything. I have found other weird looking cat-like creatures on Mars. I'll show you some of those as well. If you're new to this channel, suspend your disbelief, and at least until you've seen some of the other clips of similar things I've found. Some of them really close to the rover as well. Now this one's quite a way off. Now how far away do you think this is? We'll work it out in a minute, but it's about 50 to 100 feet away from the rover. Probably nearer 50. So it's probably only about a foot tall, this thing, so it's not very big. And what I think this is, like I said, this whole area in Jezero crater where the rover has landed is on a buried city, okay, or at least part of a buried city. And a lot of these rocks and rubble and fragments are architectural fragments. In other words, what we're seeing are the remains of a ruined city that is now buried in probably 20 feet of sand. Now let's see if we can line this one up with that one. Move it down a bit. You can actually flick between them. Now this one is Sol 78 MR. This is the right eye of the camera, and this is the left eye of the camera. Mask left, mask right, mask left, mask right. I've also got mask right raw here, where I haven't color corrected it in any way, or anything else. And I've got mask left raw here as well. So you can do the same with those two. So you see that it makes quite a difference. I think the eyes on the rover mask cam are further apart than the human eyes. Ours are quite close together. Ours are only a few inches, really, a couple of inches. I think the rover eyes are a bit further apart than that, so they get quite a good range between, and it's probably better for working out three-dimensional detail because they're further apart. And this is really cool. I mean, it's not in huge detail, as you can see, but this one actually, now these have both been enhanced exactly the same amount, but this one is brighter because actually the raw one, if you look at this raw one here, masked left is brighter than masked right. Masked right is a little bit darker and browner. Masked left is a little bit yellower and brighter. Now, I mentioned this over a month ago when I first started looking at the images. The left ones do seem brighter. Not sure why. It's probably been calibrated slightly different. I don't know. But I've got a feeling that they're using a slightly different yellow filter on this one and more of an orange filter on this one. Okay? So they may be using different filters for some sort of reason that we don't know about. Okay, but that's not really a problem. You can mix and match and look at them either way. And if you look at it in the raw one, it's just as clear as in the enhanced one. In fact, maybe even clearer in some ways. We can see it there. We can see the eye, nose, the two pointed ears sticking up, the back coming down, the tail comes back here if that is a tail. This is the back foot here and the front foot there. It's a long way off. There's not much I can do about that, I'm afraid. And there it is. And you can actually see the eye just there and the nose, perhaps, and pointed ears. It looks a bit like a cat, but it could be almost any type of creature of that sort of size. Don't know. We don't know exactly all the creatures they had on Mars yet. I've found a lot, but only probably a fraction of the ones that were actually there. And of course, if the artists were making statues and figurines of these animals, which they were, which I've proven already, they may have stylized them slightly. And also these things are eroded. They're probably made out of clay or actually carved out of rock, chiseled and carved. They've probably been subjected to thousands of years of erosion. So the details are going to be a bit vague anyway, even up close. Okay, so there's that one. And I did another clip of it here, which is probably better, a bit closer, and you can see there's the raw clip there. It's a bit fuzzy. I've sharpened it a bit and colour corrected it. It's gone very blue. I don't think these things are as blue as this, but the problem is I'm using the same kind of colour correction that I was using on the other rover, but because these images have a different colour filter on them to start with, my corrections are a bit off, and I'm working on that. So this is a bit bluer than it should be. Okay, there it is. And there's the raw clip. Very fuzzy. It's a long way off. Like I said, it's probably between 50 and 100 feet away and not very large. But what you can see, even in the raw clip, without doing anything to this at all, you can see some detail. Ears, face, nose, eye, another eye. Forgive my clumsy drawing here. I'm trying to draw with a mouse here. There's the back leg, front leg, and there's the sort of belly coming under there, like that, okay? And it's kind of attached to this thing, which is strange in itself. It's got strange parts to it, which is attached to this thing here, which may also be attached to this thing, which looks very strange, right? And we got this weird thing behind it, like this looks like part of a wall or some kind of structure that's ruined, and somehow this thing has survived because it's quite solid and sort of robust shape. Now, if this had delicate limbs sticking out, like arms or something like that, like human statues do, they would have broken off probably. Because it's quite a compact and robust shape, it stayed together. And because it's attached to this rock, which is sticking out behind it there, it's probably been protected slightly from erosion by this other part of the rock here that it's built onto or attached to. Here's the rover here. Okay, that's one of the antennae here, and there's the tracks, and it's looking across right round in a 360 panoramic, which is really big. I actually had trouble with this pan because it's so large. Uploading it, I had to downsize it very slightly. I doubled the size of it, then it wouldn't upload, so I had to shrink it by about 5%. because the Gigapans site wouldn't accept it. It's huge, and we've got loads and loads and loads of architectural fragments, what look like things that look like fossilized skulls and remains, as well as things like little statues and figurines as well, in amongst all this wreckage and debris. And we've got the strange mounds in the background, like this. This is the raw one, by the way. But the raw one's really good. It's clear and quite crisp, and you can see quite a lot of detail, and you can see into the shadows really well. This is the right one. But basically there are loads and loads and loads of things in here, and I've only just uploaded this last night and this morning. I've been working really hard the last few days, even all weekend pretty much, on these Gigapans, and I've done a whole bunch of them. I've got this one here. This is 78 ml MR, so this is mast left and mast right. Okay, mast left top, mast right bottom. This is raw. This is a section looking southeast, I think, and loads of good detail in here. These aren't that big, but there's loads of close detail here. But it's even better when you look at it in the enhanced one, because you can see a bit more definition. And there's weird things that look like skulls here. There's one here, quite small. Looks like an ape skull here. Very eroded. There's the eye. And you can just about make out some teeth here. Look at the shape of it. If you see a shape like that, it's probably a skull. So the creatures may have come along after the city was destroyed and died in the area, okay? So it's hard to say exactly what the history of this area was. We don't know yet. I need to see a lot more of this stuff on the ground to work it out. But there are pieces of the puzzle falling into place already, mainly because I've done so much research on Gale Crater over the last 10 years. And that has given me good groundwork and a good grounding in what is likely to be seen here, as it's similar in many ways. Not only is it a lake bed, but there is also a city there as well. So we have very, very similar things to Gale Crater by the Curiosity rover, and there's loads of crazy stuff in here, and I haven't really got time to show it all now, but there is some weird stuff over here which I've marked. A lot of these things are just things that look a bit like something which may not be. Like this thing here, this may not be anything, okay? But it's interesting and quite complex, and there's something weird going on there. I don't know what it is, but a lot of it you just know isn't natural, because you can see where things have been made, or you see bits of cut stone and obviously carvings of animals and that kind of thing. They were right into animals, much like the ancient Egyptians. They would have had, and I've shown many of these, they'd had sphinxes, some of them giant. I've shown them some over 200 feet long. They would have had sphinxes and animals on the walls outside their houses, often above the house, above the entrance, or either side of the entrance as you go in, like some of the temples in Egypt, okay? Some of the buildings there. They were obsessed with animals and also faces and heads and portraits. And they had lots of portraits of themselves everywhere, especially of important people and gods and kings and queens and that kind of thing. They were obsessed with them. And they were everywhere. They had gargoyles on their houses and on the buildings on top, as well as animals, carved animals and things like that, either side of the entrance or by the entrance. Okay, often gargoyle looking sort of little bear kind of deities like bears from Egypt, a bit like bears, or sphinxes and things like that. But cats were definitely part of their culture, it seems. I don't know if they were the same as our cats, but they look similar in some ways, but they look a bit strange. But basically we got this one here, so we got the raw one here. This is a double one. So we got the raw one here. This is ML MR raw. This is ML MR enhanced, this one. EN means enhanced. And we got this large one here with the cat in it there. This is 78 ml raw. Then we got MR raw here, mast right. And then we've got this one, mast left enhanced. And then we've got this one, mast right enhanced. I actually think this one is brighter. You can see how much brighter that is than this one, even though I applied the same to each one. It's because the source images were slightly brighter from the left eye. Now there's this thing, this is really strange. And I think this is also part of a building here. I think a lot of these we got these rows and rows of there's a circular pattern here. This was probably a building here, right? This circular thing, right? With rooms inside it, okay? You can see these patterns in the ground, okay? And as I've shown from some of the aerial shots of the area, not just from space, from the satellite images, but also from the Ingenuity helicopter, I've shown that a lot of these light-coloured pale rocks in the ground, the smooth ones, are walls and ruined parts of buildings with sand that's filled in between. And you often see what looks like a road here, where you've got lines and lines of these light structures in patches, right, which are remains of structures, right? And then you have a gap with what looks like a dark line going along it, right? Like this. That may be a road or pathway. And then we have more structures here. This looks like a building. And these are smaller buildings and other buildings over here. But from some angles, they don't make any sense, right? You've really got to see this stuff from the aerial shots to make sense of it. Because from the ground, they just look like rocks, but they're not. A lot of these are actual structures. This is why this rover has ground penetrating radar. That's what it's here for. They may say they're just looking for microbial fossils or whatever, but that's what they're here for. They wouldn't have put it on there just for fun, okay? That's what they're looking at. And there's structures here buried in the sand, and there may be intact chambers below a lot of this stuff, and rooms and buildings going down quite a long way. So that's what they're here for, and we haven't seen any of the GPR data yet. So if we ever get to see any, I don't think we will, to be honest. I don't think they'll ever show us. So basically, there's lots of stuff to see here, and a lot of it's just very strange. Now, Rami spotted this the other day. Rami's good at this stuff. He's really good at spotting stuff. Very strange things going on here. Very strange. What the hell is this? With what looks like a kind of arm or something sticking out, or a trunk or something. Very odd. Don't expect to be able to make sense of what these things are, and just because you don't know what they are, don't just call them a rock, because there are many things on Mars we're yet to discover and yet to categorise. I've categorised thousands of things and creatures and remains so far, but only touching the surface, really. And there will be many things we don't understand, and many types of creatures that don't correspond to ours, and many types of structures that may have been built in very different ways also, not necessarily in a conventional Earth-like manner, okay? So we've got to think out of the box, and you've got to look at things in a dispassionate and also a non-discriminatory way. In other words, you've got to use basic logic and rule out the impossible, okay? And when you rule out the impossible, you're left with the probable. And then from those probable possibilities, you can work out sometimes what these are, but not always. There's this weird thing here which looks a bit like a car. I'm not saying it is a car, but it's very odd. It's got this weird round thing sticking out here. What is that? There's loads of weird stuff like this which you really don't know what it is. But this is a good example here, this one here, of an eroded part of a building with a face carved into it. There's two eyes, a nose, and a row of teeth. Now, they don't look very convincing until you add contrast to it. So I took a clip of that, and here's a raw clip of that, which I just showed you. Now, I'm just going to show you how easy it is to enhance these. Now, what I've done is I've clipped it, I've enlarged it, and that's all I've done, right? And I've cropped it to a nice rectangular shape, right? So it fits in the viewer. And you can see, without doing anything to this, right? If I get this here, that there are two eyes, a nose, and a smile with a row of teeth, right? Not very clear. I understand that, right? But all you have to do is add contrast like this. Well, what I'll do first, I'll colour correct it first. It's going to go very blue now. There we are. And already that's changed it. And you can see that better, right? Now I'm going to make it darker. -10, +10, that's contrast. Let's go really dark just for the sake of the video. I wouldn't normally go this dark. But you can see that's what it is. And you can see there's a smile with a whole row of teeth sticking out here. And a nose there. And 2 eyes. One there and one there. And it's attached to this weird, smooth rock, which was probably attached to a wall or on top of a building or something. Okay? What was it? It's very strange, right? But a lot of this stuff is strange, and as I've shown before, some of the statues and weird carvings I found, they look quite abstract. They look like something Picasso would have come up with back in the 1920s or 30s, and are really quite strange. And they were obviously a very artistic culture and sophisticated culture, and not only did representations of animals that they knew of and had seen, but may have been doing representations of mythical creatures that they may have thought existed many thousands of years before, or just made up artistic expressions of people and animals as well, like this may be. Like modern art, you know. These things can often be quite strange, right? These weird sculptures. But bear in mind, this is probably very, very old and very, very eroded. And I would imagine this would have been much squarer initially, right? Before all the erosion. So that's how easy it is to enhance these. Now, I wouldn't normally go that dark. That's a bit harsh. And the colours become very saturated. So I would probably, when I do a clip of this properly, what I'll do, I won't go as hard as that, and I won't go as saturated, and I'll probably desaturate it a bit, get rid of a lot of this red, and just make it a bit easier on the eye. But that's it. That's what it is. Now, you can argue till the cows come home about why it's there and what it was, but that's what it is. You can see it. You can see those teeth there. You can see the nose. You can see the 2 eyes. It's a bit vague. It's eroded, but most of these things are. Okay? They're very, very old. And most of the things we see are vague. And they're either a long way off, or they're eroded, or both. And that's the problem with this cat here, is that it's too far to see in any great detail. But even if we did, it would be heavily eroded anyway. And what we're seeing from this distance are the general shapes. The ears on this are what caught my attention initially. Sticking up. Let's do that again. Why would a rock have those? And a body? The back foot. Front foot there. There's another foot there. It's like a cat sitting on a rock. But this rock is attached to this one, which is probably attached to this one, right? So we've got a row of boulders and rocks kind of joined together in a tight join there, and another tight join there, right? This is block work, okay? And this has got some weird details in it as well. This thing here, very strange. So this may be a representation of something or somebody. So I'm trying to put myself in to the mind of some of the artists and masons that would have worked on Mars, and what they were doing and how they were doing it. And a lot of this stuff is just carved straight out of the local rock and then put together. And they were also making stuff with concrete as well. And many of the figurines and stuff that I found and statues, I think, are bronzes, not just made of stone. And a lot of them are actually just moulded out of clay. In other words, they were handmade from clay and moulded and then dried out, which is a lot easier than carving from hard rock with a chisel and then polishing it down after, which is a very laborious process. But some of this rock is quite soft, and some of the rock in the area is very hard. So they would have chosen different materials, different coloured materials as well. There's rocks of all colours here, all colours of the rainbow pretty much, and they would mix and match the different materials and the clays from the lake bed and moulded it into animal shapes. And they may have even carved straight from the actual rock here, right? This is the rock behind this thing, with some weird detail there. So that in itself is weird. And we've got these weird details here, sticking out. So I don't know what that represents, but there's something there. But that, when it's outlined, you can see it, okay? But a lot of people can't see these things immediately. And it takes a bit of getting used to these images to actually see these things like I do regularly, because I'm used to working with them. And I'm used to looking at how to focus distant objects and how to interpret them, okay? There's that skull that I showed you briefly. I've enhanced it a bit. You can see that that's like an eye there and some teeth here. Very vague. You can see the jaw there, which is lighter, the lower jaw, the mandible, and the skull coming back. Perfect shape, but very pitted and eroded. Now, most people wouldn't spot that, but I've been spotting the ape and humanoid and animal skulls on Mars of all sorts for many years now, and I've got a good eye for it. There's this one now. This is one I spotted the other day. This is like a bear or a dog. This is the eye socket. You can even see in there the remains of an eye. This is mummified and fossilised. That's obviously the cranium. This is the snout coming down, nose area, and some complex details in here representing teeth, okay? This is pretty obvious to me what it is. All right? This is the cranium at the top. This is the eye socket, right? Large eye socket. There's another one on the other side, more than likely. Head comes round, and then if you go in close, let's get rid of that. You can see teeth. There's one there, one here, one there, and some molars and stuff here. There's a row of them coming along here. And that looks like a canine there. So this might go down into the ground like this. So this is either a bear or a dog or something similar. It could even be an aquatic mammal or semi-aquatic. Right? So if you look at the eye socket comes right round, and we've actually got mummified eye detail in there. Right? There it is. But there it is. You can see that eye detail in there. You can see the nose here, remains of a nose. And you can see that thing sticking down. That's what I think is a canine tooth, just there, sticking down where my pointer is, just there. And there's other teeth here. But you need to take a clip of it, enlarge it, and then push the contrast, and you'll see these pop out. But some of these animals may have been pets of the people that lived there. And some of them may have been carvings of animals, like I said, outside their buildings or shops or businesses. Or they may have worshipped certain animals for certain reasons, like cats or dogs, or who knows. Like in ancient Egypt and other parts of the Middle East and other places on Earth. So who knows what was going on there. But there's a real mixed bag here. And don't be surprised if you find an animal skull next to a humanoid one or something like that, because it will happen. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll put some more clips in now. I'll see you soon.